Welcome to Just Ride Bikes. I'm David and this is the brand new Canyon Aeroad CFR. And while some bike companies are merging their Aero and lightweight bikes into one single platform, like Specialized with Tarmac and Trek with the Madone SLR, Canyon, well, they're not doing that. They still have their Ultimate, their lightweight climbing focused bike, updated last year, and today they launched their 4th generation Aeroad, their pure dedicated aero platform. So in this video we'll go through the main changes and updates and how aero and lightweight it is, and we'll go for a first spin as well and see how it performs and handles, and we'll talk about this too. It might be the only bike I know with handlebar drops you can replace for more aero ones, and also change the width as well. So fairly interesting. We'll talk about those later in today's video. But let's dive in and have a closer look at a brand new Canyon Aeroad CFR. So what have they changed then? Because visually it looks the same as the old bike, doesn't it? Just a copy and paste, right? Well, Canyon says the goal for the new bike was to find more stiffness in key areas, find a bit more aero where they could, and also drop the weight as well. The usual goals of any top level race bike. Now the previous generation Aeroad was already a very aerodynamic race bike. In German magazine Tours testing in a wind tunnel at 45 kph, they found it required just 204 watts, so it compared very well to other bikes in this space. And Canyon claims in their testing that the new bike is marginally more aero than the old bike. As with all aero claims, take them with a pinch of salt. And that improved aero comes from a few key changes. We have a much narrower, slimmer head tube, a slimmer down tube as well, and a much deeper fork design than the old bike owing to new revised UCI rules. And of course a one-piece handlebar stem, which we'll come back to in a moment because it's a big change right there. And then moving back, we have this nice bottom bracket chainstay design, slimmer rear triangle rear stays, and a brand new seat tube and seat post design, which are based largely on feedback from Mathieu van der Poel, and also to remedy the issues with the old bike when they had the issues with the seat post failing. So the seat clamp has moved from down here to on the top tube, and we have a regular skinnier seat post than before. So apparently one of Mathieu van der Poel's key bits of feedback on the old bike was while he liked the comfort in the saddle, he felt a lack of stiffness from the back of the bike, which wasn't giving him the feedback he wanted when racing. So they really beefed up the stiffness around the seat tube, the rear stays, just to give him that feedback he wants when racing. It's a shame there's no cover over the bolt, which is exposed, but we do have a rubber seal around the seat post to stop water and dirt getting inside there. And it's nice to have some measurements on the seat post here, get the saddle height just right. And then we have a light here, which is entirely optional, I should hasten to add. So we have 2 bolts there. If you're a pro like Mathieu van der Poel, you can put your race number there. If you're not, you're an amateur, you can fit a light. But this bracket here is optional, it can be removed. Don't want it, nice and clean. But if you do, then you have the option of a rear light. So it's kind of cool. More companies are doing that. Love it or hate it, like BMC, Villiers and others. And then we have the brand new Pace handlebar, as they are calling it, an evolution of the old handlebar. So still a one-piece carbon fiber and height adjustable without cutting the steering tube, which is neat. And removable drops for easy traveling in a box or bag, and width adjustment up to 50mm. But then we have these new aero drops, so you can go for regular drops like here, or new aero drops which are narrower in the tops and flared in the drops for a claimed 14-watt drag reduction. Pretty crazy. I'm told that swapping them is fairly easy. The only issue is removing the bar tape and then removing the brake lever hood, but the brake hose is not inside the handlebar. So relative to a normal one-piece handlebar, a bit easier to change from regular to aero drops. Definitely not a roadside fix, but an easier home mechanic job But given it's an Aero bike, I don't know why it doesn't come with the Aero drops fitted, because if you're riding a bike, you probably want maximum Aero, so just put these on in the first place and have these as an option would make a lot more sense in my opinion. And then we have the gear groove, a feature borrowed from the Grail gravel bike I reviewed last year, and essentially a modular system. So it fits a GPS computer like I have here, an iPhone or Android phone on there, or some time trial extensions if you're into crazy sports like duathlon or time trial or Ironman. So you have a time trial bike as well as an Aero road bike. And it's a nice way to offer that sort of modular adjustment for different features. And I can see them growing that list of accessories, lights and bar bags maybe, for the gravel bike definitely. But as somebody who has no interest in using time trial extensions, I do miss the clean looks of the old handlebar, because I think this gear groove is a bit unsightly, it's a bit ugly on a nice clean Aero bike like this compared to other handlebars on other bikes. So maybe it's just me, but I think that's a bit ugly. But let me know what you think by leaving a comment down below. For clarification, professionals like Mattia van der Poel are riding a similar handlebar with the same removable drops but no gear groove, and a 20mm reduced stack height for the aggressive fit they prefer. And no, sadly you can't buy this handlebar at present, although I'm sure some people would happily choose it. So race bikes like this, in the hands of the pros at least, have to stand up to lots of abuse. So Canyon has really worked on making the bike easier to service and look after. So we have T25 bolts across the entire frame, so it makes adjusting anything on the bike much easier. And all the bolts are machined and manufactured in Germany as well. And then inside the headset we have a titanium bearing seat on the fork and double lip seals to ensure the bearings don't get washed away by the daily jet washing of a pro mechanic. We have, like BMC and Pinarello and others, enclosed through axle end caps on the fork and the rear stays, which I really like, and that is fast becoming a new trend in the road bike world, and one I can't find any complaints about so far. And the bike still has space for 32mm wide tyres and comes fitted with 28, so space to go wider if you want and still have good clearance for dirt and grit and rain to get around the tyres when you're riding in gritty UK conditions, or riding across the cobbles of northern France and Belgium. But then my favourite feature on the bike, and I'll demonstrate, underneath the fork we have small rubber stoppers, so when you take the front wheel out, as I do right now, you can safely put the fork down without fear of scratching the carbon on your expensive bike. So that's really cool. I don't know why other manufacturers don't do that. So if you're changing a front wheel puncture, that is genius. All we need now is a kickstand on the back for changing the rear wheel, and we're sorted. So getting the front wheel in is a bit trickier, as I've demonstrated, because we have quite large openings around the through axle, which means you have to really guide the fork around the wheel hub very carefully. So there we go, nice detail. Right, before we get changed and go for a ride, let's talk about the price. And Canyon is known for good value for money, and they are offering the new bike in CF SLX and the CFR versions. There's no CF SL for some reason, but the range starts from just under £4,000 here in the UK with a SRAM Rival AXA group set, and then goes all the way up to the bike I have here, the top of the range model, the CFR, with a SRAM Red AXA group set and these very nice looking Zip 454 NSW wheels, which retail for over £3,000 on their own. And this entire bike will set you back just under £9,800, which, yes, it's a lot of money, I know that, but it's a lot less than the Pinarello Dogma F I've just been riding, or a Tarmac SL8 or a Trek Madone SLR with a similar list of equipment. And the bike here is 7.1 kilos on my scales. So let me get changed, we'll go for a ride and see how it performs and give some first impressions ahead of my full review in the next few weeks' time. And one thing that stands out straight away is when you're riding a bike, you don't have to stare at a damn computer mount on the handlebar.
unless it's Chris Froome, of course. And unsurprisingly, it feels almost identical to the old Aeroad, which is no bad thing. A very good bike indeed. Just look at Mathieu van der Poel. He doesn't let that bike slow him down at all. Wins in the mountains, sprint finishes, and over the cobbles of Paris-Roubaix and Tour of Flanders, demonstrating how fast the bike is and also how capable, versatile and tough the bike is. And a very popular bike with us consumers, us regular weekend warriors. So yeah, speed is there, definitely a fast bike. I can't really say where it's any faster than the old bike in my sort of real world testing, but it's definitely up there with Trek Madone and other top end Aero race bikes. It's not a slouch at all. Really, really quick. And there is something very appealing about blasting along the road, hell for leather, as fast as you can on a bike like this. The speed it gives you is definitely above a lightweight all-rounder. And I reckon it feels quicker in my testing than a Tarmac SL8. But of equal importance to me as a regular rider on crappy roads here in the Cotswolds, I also value and appreciate comfort. And that's an area where aero bikes in the past have been pretty poor. This bike is pretty good. It's not as silky smooth or supple as a new Tarmac SL8 or perhaps a new Trek Madone SLR. And it's comparable to a Super 6 Evo perhaps, but definitely smoother than that Van Rysel RCR I rode and reviewed last week. I wouldn't say it floats over the rough stuff, but does a pretty remarkable job of smoothing out the rough tarmac I'm riding over right now. So it does a pretty good job of smoothing out the rougher, broken tarmac, and enough to make a 4-hour ride, which I did last Sunday, more than bearable. The other detail that really stood out in the presentation of this new bike is how Canyon claims the new bike is as aero with 50mm deep rims as the old bike with 62mm deep rims. And what it means is you're getting a lighter wheel set, so less weight. This bike is just over 7 kilos, which is pretty good for a size medium SRAM red Access equipped aero race bike. But perhaps of bigger importance than the weight saving is when you're riding in windy, blustery conditions, the wind swirling around and really trying to snatch your bike from underneath you, you have a shallower rim, so more stable. And I rode in some quite windy conditions the other day, and the bike did feel pretty planted when dealing with some quite erratic wind at times. So that's a small detail, but one that for me increases the usability of the bike for us amateur cyclists, but that makes it easier to live with and just less of a handful than an aero bike with some really deep wheels. Also very nice to have an aero bike that's just a tickle over 7 kilos, so not heavy at all. And on my local big climb, it's not long but very steep, 20-25% in places, the bike felt pretty good. Not quite as scintillating as that Tarmac SL8, the S-Works version, or the new Villiers Verticale SLR, and has, importantly for me, that feeling of a lightweight bike beneath you or between your legs.
I've only been riding the bike for about 2 weeks now, so not enough time to uncover any issues yet, but there is one that struck me straight away. And we have these lovely fancy carbon cages, and the bike came with Canyon's own water bottles, which fit very well. Very snug, no rattling, but if you have your own bottles you prefer, like these, they don't fit. They rattle and they could easily fall out. So that's a real shame. I don't know why the cages don't fit a regular water bottle, only their own bottles. And something else I think is worth bringing to your attention is, in my opinion, the amazing paint finish on this bike. The design is sensational, looks fabulous on a sunny day like today. And Canyon, when they first arrived in the UK 10 years ago, were accused of making really dull, stealth black bikes. But I think Canyon are doing some pretty cool looking bikes these days. But let me know what you think by dropping a comment down below. So some very good first impressions on the new Canyon Aeroad CFR. Stay tuned for a more in-depth review very soon by hitting that subscribe button down below. Of course, riding any top-end bike, all the best equipment, is a very nice experience indeed. And riding a slightly more affordable CFR SLX would be a nice comparison to see how that compares to the top end one we have here. But even though it's very expensive and very top end, it's still a lot cheaper than the Pinarello Dogma F I was riding very recently, and in my experience, a nicer ride. Way more comfort, way more real world usability and smoothness and ride quality than that Pinarello, and definitely a more appealing price tag as well. And you are getting amazing equipment too. The wheels, the tyres, that 3D printed saddle, that's very comfy indeed. So some top level specification. So given how fast this bike is and how light it is and how nice it rides, it does make me wonder why you choose the Ultimate over this bike and not take the Aero gains, whether you believe them or not, and have a bike that rides sensationally well across, over, up and down all sorts of roads. So yeah, full review coming very soon. Let me know what you think by leaving a comment down below. I'll put a link to the Canyon website down below as well. And if you want to see a review of the Tarmac SL8, probably one of the benchmark lightweight aero race bikes right now, then watch the video right up here. But that's all for today. I'll see you again very soon. Thank you so much for watching.